Imagine betting your entire company, a 97-year-old legacy, on a single radical idea. An idea so absurd, it made an entire industry think you had lost your mind. Well, in 1972, Audemars Piguet, one of the three holiest names in Swiss watchmaking, did exactly that. They launched a watch made of simple stainless steel, but priced it higher than a solid gold Patek Philippe. It was a Hail Mary pass in the face of certain doom, a gamble that nearly bankrupted them. This is the story of the watch that saved its maker by nearly destroying it first. This is the story of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. To understand the sheer insanity of this decision, you have to understand the terror that was gripping the Swiss watch industry in the early 1970s. For centuries, Switzerland was the undisputed king of watches. Their mechanical movements were tiny, intricate engines built by hand, but a tsunami was forming on the horizon, and it was coming from Japan. This was the Quartz Crisis, a revolution that threatened to make mechanical watches obsolete overnight. Japanese companies like Seiko had perfected the quartz watch. Powered by a battery, they were astoundingly accurate, and crucially, they were cheap to produce. While a Swiss artisan spent weeks on one watch, Japanese factories were churning out millions. The effect was catastrophic. The market was flooded with affordable, reliable watches. And between 1970 and 1983, the number of Swiss watchmaking companies plummeted from 1,600 to just 600. Do you realize what this means? Over 1,000 legendary brands just vanished. And in the eye of this storm was Audemars Piguet. Founded in 1875, AP had built its name on exquisite, complicated watches made from gold and platinum. The problem was they were artists, not industrialists. And now their entire philosophy was under attack. Their traditional customers were getting older, and the younger generation was captivated by this new quartz technology. The company, like so many others, was staring into the abyss. They needed a miracle. As it turns out, the miracle started with a phone call. The story is now a legend. On the eve of the 1972 Basel Watch Fair, Georges Gaulet, the head of Audemars Piguet, was in a bind. He was told the market needed something totally new, something sporty you could wear from a boardroom to the beach. He needed a design for a steel sports watch, and he needed it by the next morning. At 4 p.m., he called the one man he believed could pull it off, Gerald Genta, a rising star in watch design. But a totally new, waterproof, steel sports watch designed overnight? This was on another level. Genta got to work, and he found his inspiration in the most unlikely place imaginable, a commercial diver's brass helmet. He was struck by how the helmet's faceplate was locked down by 8 big screws to create a perfect seal. That image became the foundation. He sketched an octagonal bezel held down by 8 visible hexagonal screws. This was not just for looks, it was structural, a statement about the watch's engineering. But the radical ideas did not stop there. Instead of a separate strap, Genta designed a bracelet that flowed seamlessly from the watch head, making it a single piece of architecture. The dial would have this complex, textured pattern of tiny squares called petite tapisserie, and inside this body of steel would beat a heart of gold, the ultra-thin caliber 2121, one of the most beautiful automatic movements ever made. By morning, the design was done. It was industrial, angular, and utterly unlike any luxury watch that had ever existed. It was the Royal Oak. So when AP unveiled this thing at the Basel Fair on April 15th, 1972, the reaction was not applause. It was pure, unadulterated shock. Competitors literally came to their booth, said congratulations, and then walked away whispering that the company was finished. You have to understand just how revolutionary this watch was. In an era where luxury meant a small, round gold dress watch, the Royal Oak was a 39mm giant. In a world where craftsmanship was hidden, it wore its construction right on its sleeve. And most heretically of all, it was made of stainless steel. Before 1972, steel was for tool watches. Luxury was gold. The Royal Oak completely upended that. And then there was the price. Audemars Piguet launched the Royal Oak for 3,300 Swiss francs. To put that in perspective, that was more than many solid gold Patek Philippe dress watches of the day, and over 10 times the price of a Rolex Submariner. It was, at the time, the most expensive stainless steel watch in the world. A P was making a statement. The value was not in the material, but in the design, the finishing, and the movement inside. The market, however, was not convinced. The watch was a commercial disaster. answer. Sales were painfully slow. A P had committed to making 1,000 of these watches, a massive financial risk. As those first 1,000 pieces sat unsold, the money was hemorrhaging. Do you realize the irony here? The company that had survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression was now on the brink of bankruptcy, not from an outside crisis, but from its own creation. The watch that was supposed to save them was killing them. For the first year, it looked like a fatal mistake. The watch was too big, too strange, too expensive. But then, slowly, something began to shift. The Royal Oak started to find its people. It was not the traditional watch buyer. It was a new generation of tastemakers, people who understood what Genta and AP were trying to do. Influential figures, especially in the Italian market that had inspired it, started wearing the Royal Oak. They saw it not just as a watch, but as a piece of design. Its radical look became a statement. It was a watch for people who appreciated architecture and art. And here's the thing that people finally started to understand. The message cut through. You were not paying for steel. You were paying for the insane amount of hand finishing that made that steel look more precious than gold. Word of mouth began to spread. The watch that was an object of ridicule became an object of desire. After a very slow start, the first 1,000 watches finally sold out. AP, breathing a huge sigh of relief, made another batch. Those sold too. The gamble had paid off. The Royal Oak had found its footing, and in doing so, it had pulled Audemars Piguet back from the brink. It became the brand's bestseller and gave it a powerful new identity that would carry it through the rest of the Quartz Crisis. They had bet everything, and against all odds, they had won. But the success of the Royal Oak did more than just save Audemars Piguet. It changed the entire game. It pioneered the category we now call the luxury steel sports watch, a watch that combined the durability of a sports watch with the artistry and price of high-end watchmaking. It proved that luxury was not just about precious metal, it was about design and craftsmanship. This sent ripples across the industry. Just 4 years later, in 1976, AP's top rival, Patek Philippe, tapped the very same designer, Gerald Genta, to create their answer to the Royal Oak. The result was another icon, the Nautilus. Soon, other brands followed. The luxury sports watch was no longer an anomaly. It was the new standard. Over the next 50 years, the Royal Oak became the brand's flagship, an undisputed grail watch for collectors. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most important watch designs in history, a design born from a desperate, last-ditch effort to survive. For 50 years, the Royal Oak has been Audemars Piguet's sacred icon, its design carefully protected. But now, in May of 2026, it looks like history is repeating itself with another high-stakes, controversial gamble. On May 9th, after days of cryptic teasers, Swatch officially confirmed a collaboration with Audemars Piguet. The project is called the Royal Pop, and it is scheduled to launch globally in Swatch boutiques on May 16th, 2026. This is a move that has sent the watch world into an absolute frenzy, and the parallels to 1972 are impossible to ignore. For the first time ever, Audemars Piguet is letting the Royal Oak's silhouette be reinterpreted by Swatch, the master of accessible plastic pop culture watches. Now, what makes this so significant is that unlike the Omega Moon Swatch, Audemars Piguet is not part of the Swatch group. It is a fiercely independent house, one of the Holy Trinity, partnering with a mass market giant. The debates raging online today mirror the exact same incredulity of 1972. Critics are crying brand dilution, arguing that a bioceramic mass-produced version cheapens a half-century of prestige. Proponents, however, see it as a stroke of marketing genius, just like the Moon Swatch, which introduced the Omega Speedmaster to millions of new consumers. The argument is that this creates new fans for the future without hurting the core brand. As of today, May 12th, concrete details about the Royal Pop are still scarce. We know the name, the launch date, and that it will be a mechanical watch, but price, colors, and final form remain a mystery, fueling insane speculation. The question is Audemars Piguet once again rewriting the rules, or is it risking the dilution of its greatest asset? And that's the billion-dollar question. Is the Royal Pop a brilliant, forward-thinking move to keep an icon relevant for the next 50 years, or is it a misstep that could tarnish a legacy? It is a high-risk, high-reward play, and the entire watch world is holding its breath. What do you think? Is this genius or heresy? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you want more counterfactual business stories like this, subscribe to the channel. The story of Audemars Piguet is the story of calculated risks. this. The Royal Oak was a watch born from a moment of crisis, an audacious gamble that redefined the very concept of luxury. It transformed steel into a canvas for high art and secured the future of a legendary brand. Today, as we stand on the precipice of the Royal Pop's launch, we see that same DNA at work, that same willingness to provoke, to challenge conventions, and to bet big on a bold idea. Whether the Royal Pop becomes a celebrated success or a cautionary tale, it proves one thing. For Audemars Piguet, the greatest risk is not taking one at all. Thank you for watching. This was Capital Counterfactual. I'll see you in the next episode.
You